welcome everyone to Canada's Food and Everything Else Food Safety or Safety Podcast. I screwed that up already,
Oh,
Dominic?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, welcome to another episode of our podcast, Food Safety and Everything Else Podcast. Dominic, welcome back for another episode.
Hey, Jay.
I'm trying to be proper.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have another great show. You know what? I'm starting to look at the numbers. Your podcasts are starting to take some traction here.
That's
And
good.
get going.
Yeah.
And this is what podcasts do. They take time to get out there and people get, used to the regular content. But we have a great show lined up today. Can you kind of maybe share before we maybe bring him into the studio?
Yeah. We got a cool guy I've known for. He'll tell us how long we've known each other for, but probably more than 20 years. A food safety professional, an expert, I would say. He might disagree with me, but he's an expert in everything food safety, and he has a passion for this, which is, we like to talk to these kind of folks on our podcast, and once in a while we cross paths and we talk to each other, and I thought it would be great to have him join us. He does all the things that we talk about in a professional way.
Oh, really?
For a large organization. Yeah. He understands HACCP, and he understands all the things that need to go into building a really high quality, functioning, effective quality assurance program. And not just in food safety. He's a professional where safety is safety, food safety being just part of the whole safety picture. And we've spoken in the past. That's why it's effective, is when you take that whole approach to applying safety right across your system, it works. So he'll join us here shortly.
Well, let's do the intro and bring him in. All right, here we go.
Hey, welcome, Ermin.
Good to be here.
And all the practice, and I can't say it, Ermin. You tell me, how do you say your last name?
Okay, we tested this before, but I think you did pretty good considering your Italian background. The name is Ermin Arnautovic, and Arnautovic, with the C at the end, but should be CH. And I think you mentioned that I'm passionate about food safety and occupational health and safety. I think you kind of went too far with that, and I think I just do my job. But no, I think that's a very important part of my career. I've been doing this for more than 30 years, and I think you and me, we met first time back in a Lucerne Foods or Safeway time. That was probably 1998. So we know each other for good 25 years and worked, off and on together. So I'm really pleased that I have in my career somebody who I can rely on, and working with you on different topics and different subjects. So I'm really pleased to be here with you and Jay, talking about food safety and occupational health and safety.
Yeah, your title is Health and Food Safety, Occupational Health and Food Safety Specialist. For a large organization, we won't mention the name. I would like to speak about your role in the realm of the amount of employees that fall under your purview and it's really everybody in the organization. Tell us about what your role is without mentioning the company, and then let's talk about we'll get deep into why it's important.
Yeah, as you mentioned, my title is actually health and safety and food safety specialist with the company that I work for now. And I've been around, occupational health and safety and food safety, HACCP and all that for pretty much from 95. From the very beginning, when we started implementing HACCP, hazard analysis, critical control points, back in 90s, until now, when we are in a different role. And I started as with my food science degree, I started in food safety, and throughout the career, actually, I realized that occupational health and safety and food safety are very close to in the area where we work, and that having both kind of designations, it would be beneficial not just for my career but for the company that I work for. So I think I started that back in late 90s, combining food safety and occupational health and safety, and I think it became very efficient for the company that I work for, because I can cover both area very often. That's it's very independent area that people cover. So as a Canadian CRSP, Canadian Registered Safety Professional, and a food science professional, I found myself in the area that I cover both industries and both safety fields, and I think it works. I think that there's not too many people with knowledge in both sides, even though it's not rocket science, but still. No. It's a common sense, especially in hospitality services, that most of my career I kind of helped and assisted in being in a consulting and as a specialist kind of role.
I agree 100%. On previous shows, I have shared that in our auditing business, the retail locations or the grocery locations that we've audited, the ones that the most successful location that I ever seen, and it was where, and a large 80,000 square foot store, like a really big place with like 150 employees, but they had their food safety program on lockdown, and we had already done probably 40 or 50 other audits, and when we asked the assistant location manager and the manager and the person that was going through the audit with us, because they had a near perfect score, they weren't perfect but they were close, why they were so successful, and they walked us through their program. And their program was, in many retail locations, especially if you're larger, you'd have an occupational health and safety committee for safety, and it's often tied to workers' compensation, so you get a discount of some sort. But their program in their location, their occupational health and safety and their food safety were part of the same. Food safety fell under occupational health and safety. So when they toured the store for their occupational health and safety, they spoke about food safety every month. Every person from every department got to talk about food safety. So we're talking 20 years ago. The culture of food safety is a pretty hot topic now, where you talk about culture and instilling culture and working on culture. These guys had it way back when, and your approach is exactly what they were doing, and I've seen firsthand that it is successful, and it's successful because you're looking at all parts of it, and there's a definite benefit to the company and the location, and ultimately your customers, obviously, when you look at it that way. Because now all of a sudden, instead of one person looking at it, everybody is considering, they're considering all parts of it. So hats off to you for looking at it. I think it's proven right for you as well, because here you are 20 something years later, and you work for a pretty large organization in a really important position. And I would say they have benefited greatly from that approach.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I've seen in the last, I don't know, maybe 5 to 8 years, that lots of occupational health and safety person and colleagues and friends, they're turning into occupational health and safety and food safety experts. They try to learn more about food safety, about E. coli outbreak, which we learned hard way just recently in Calgary and all over the place. It happens all the time in Canada, in United States, in Europe. And very often they come to me and they say, hey, what courses should I take? What learning do I need to get to the level where you at? But I've been around for many years, so they trying to learn about food safety and connect that with occupational health and safety industry and have that implemented in their career. And very often, as I said, they contact me and they ask me, and very often I just send them to you, and that's your problem from then on.
Well, and I know, right? We're the starting point, and we're just a part of that whole safety continuum, the safety program. It cannot just be the education part. It needs to be the supervision part, the program part, the documentation part. Many of those other things. Unfortunately, I think in this business, in this sort of, it's liability driven, right?
Absolutely.
And we've had Bill Marler on our show, who's from Marler Clark in the U.S., and he sued way back Jack in the Box, if you recall.
I remember. Yeah.
His we were talking about why Canada might be a little slower in change for some things. And his kind of take on it was the lawsuits are smaller because our healthcare is covered by the public. It's not covered by an individual when something happens. So when something happens, the public is taking care of all these kids, even here in Calgary, right? That's the public health. And it strained our system, actually, because there was so many. I think they had 21 on dialysis at one point here in Calgary.
Yeah.
Kids. So that obviously strained the system. Is it hard to get everybody on board looking at it the same way? In an organization, you're in a really big place.
Yeah. It's hard until the problem happens, right? And then it's not hard anymore. Then the big companies, even smaller companies, when the problem happens, then financing or budgeting or resources, it's not a problem. But what the problem is, until the point then that company realizes the importance of foodborne outbreak or even occupational safety issues that right now I'm covering pretty much Canada, from Labrador to BC to Ireland to United States, California, North Dakota, and all that. And everything is good until something happens, and then everybody raise the red flag and say, Ermin or whoever is in charge, okay, why did that happen? Where's the root cause? and how we can fix it, how the corrective actions can be implemented. And even at that point, it's always financial issue. Initially they say, oh, do whatever needs to be done. But when I say, okay, we need to spend probably for training, I don't know, I'll throw the number, let's say, $30,000, for the next 6 months or whatever. And then, the questions come up and say, okay, why 30,000? Can we do it with 15,000? That's that's the business that we're in. And I'm not talking about, a company that I work for now. I'm talking about hotel businesses, restaurants, small restaurants, big chains, franchises that, I was dealing with. And, as I said, everything is good until something happens. So,
sadly, always the case. There's this, 110, 100, sort of $1 of prevention will save you $100 of correction, right? So
exactly.
There's even more pressure in the food business now because we've got, we'll get political with carbon tax. We've got higher electricity fees, higher natural gas, higher taxes all around, higher wages, higher input costs in everything we do, from construction materials down to the food. So that puts extra pressure on safety. Plus, then, if you've got a labor shortage, even more pressure, because the same amount of people are trying to still accomplish the same task, right? Which is not always possible. Well, actually, it's probably never possible, because at some point we're taking shortcuts, right?
Absolutely.
And you're absolutely right. Bill Marler also said exactly what you said, in that what's it going to take for a company to take it seriously from the prevention perspective versus the correction perspective? And it should never get to the correction, right? Like me and you agree with that. In a contract feeding situation where you're taking care of a lot of people, that sometimes that's better because it's a little easier. You got control all in one site, but it's also more challenging because you're instead of making 40 or 50 meals, you're feeding 550 or 2,050.
Exactly.
How does I think in your situation now, in your company, when you're a construction company or a company that already has that safety mentality from the work site, from a construction site perspective, but telling them, hey, we need to do this from a food safety perspective is usually easier. Hospitality does not have that mentality. I think hospitality is challenged. We have still lots of back injuries. We have lots of slip and fall injuries. We have tons and tons of burns and cuts injuries in food service still. We spoke with a chef instructor from I can't remember the school here in Calgary. Anyway, we spoke with the chef, and those skills are being taught.
Andy.
Yeah, Andy Waters. What was the school called? Man, I can't. That's really bad. Anyway, they teach high school students, so they get some of these skills. But not everybody who comes to work in a restaurant or even in your business, do they necessarily come to the kitchen with those skills in hand, because they might be put on a position where they don't necessarily need those skills, but they might be pressed into service, right? When somebody's sick.
Yeah, with the labor shortage, it's really hard to find, qualified people to work in a kitchen. But, if we talking about hospitality service and, including hotels, bigger restaurants, smaller restaurants, industrial camps. Obviously, Alberta is full of industrial camps in a Fort McMurray area and other, mining businesses where the remote locations can affect, quality of the workforce that you employ. And then training for those people, especially for newcomers, we want to accommodate newcomers here, lots of people coming from, from Ukraine, from East India and all that. And we want to at least give basic training of, in the food safety and occupational health and safety. So you mentioned, slips, trips and falls and, burns or cuts and lacerations. I just developed actually training for 4 major injuries in the food service and kitchen environment, which is cuts and lacerations, burns, slips and trips and falls. And then over and above of that would be, food safety incidents that, it's easy to throw somebody in a dishwasher room and tell them, okay, throw the dishes in the dishwasher, take them out and make sure they, placed properly. But on the other hand, that do people, not just from food safety perspective, do they understand the temperature chain and proper dishwashing? Do they understand wearing proper personal protective equipment? Is it rubber gloves or nitrile gloves? Is that, wearing apron or not wearing apron because, that can prevent from, steam burns on, on the body. And maybe I'm going over and above what your question is, but I think that
not at all.
Having proper workforce, trained workforce, which very often you help me with, at least with the basic food safety training, but with the initial probation period where people understand food safety, occupational health and safety, worker compensation issues, modify work that very often needs to be implemented if the person is injured or in some sort of accident. All those things need to be important, and supervision. I sit in a Calgary and I advise and consult people on the site that are somewhere north of 60 or far away from urban area, but I need proper supervisors who can monitor, observe, and see what's happening, because I can, teach them, coach them, train them as much as I can. But if I don't have on the site firsthand supervisors, managers, assistant managers who can observe that process on daily basis, almost hourly basis, putting together all the temperature logs, putting together, all the requirements that HACCP program requires, then we're not going to be efficient. And on the top of that, of course, that you mentioned with the, energy and water bills and everything, we need to be profitable. And that's what, I, even as a safety professional, I need to consider expenses to that. And, including training, including, use of propane or energy sources that, and I always work with the senior managers, considering all those facts in order to be profitable. Otherwise, we're going to be out of business, and I'm going to be out of job. I'm going to be out of job. I don't want that.
No. So back to the training part of it and the effective supervision, how do we impress upon the supervisors and managers the importance of this? Because they have the same pressures as you, right? You're looking at it from a bigger perspective, but then when you get down to the location, that manager, the supervisor, they've got all the same considerations, including profitability. And my thought here is we spoke with the previous chef, the instructor, in his career as a chef throughout Europe and in multiple hotels, was that the difference between just enough and really good was a small effort, and
Absolutely.
it was more of an attitude look and an efficiency look. And maybe working with guys like you or him, in this case, the chef. So, if it's important to me, it will be right. If I make it important, I can make it happen. That attitude. How do you get that? What do we need to say to chefs, cooks, managers, supervisors? This is really important. You can kill somebody if you screw this up, right? Your guys probably know because they're in a large camp. But often we're putting people into those positions that it's new, especially now because there's a higher turnover. Lots of people during COVID left and did not come back to our industry. So what's the message to them to say we need you and not only do we need you right now, like you said, we need you all the time with this attitude.
Yeah, and you know what? The position of the chef in hospitality service is in, as far as I'm concerned, it's more important than the president of the vice president of the company. Honestly,
I agree.
Chef.
I agree.
Chef and people around chef. First cook, second cook, or depending on the size of the kitchen and size of the service, is so important. The chef can make you tons of money and make people happy, with his menu, with a presentation, with a communication with the clients, and chef is, in Germany and back in the 19th century in Germany, chefs and cooks were artists. They were considered as artists, and I mean, in today's world, where we, live in a completely different world than back 19th century Germany, but we need to understand that chef is the guy who can feed hundreds of people, make them happy, make them, understanding his, even spaghetti with the meat sauce can be top meal for some people if the chef he knows what he's doing. And I keep saying that training with the chef, we can put advanced food safety for a chef, but what is that? That's 1% of his performance. How he's going to present himself, how he's going to provide proper service and proper meal and proper menu, and how he's going to be welcoming and really picture of your business. That's so important. And I keep saying that, chef is number one in your facility. Chef is the one who's going to bring your business up, to the higher level. And you're 100% sure. I work with chefs when I go for, kitchen audits and inspections. I go with a fine tooth comb and I make sure that I bring up to the chef everything what I see, how he's going to deal with that, how he's going to, or she will make that, happen to the higher level with keeping the cost down. That's the art of the chef position, for sure.
Yeah, and they some restaurants group call the kitchen heart of house. I don't know if you've heard that. They call it the heart of the house instead of the back of the house, because of the reason you say they're critical to the operation. But although you have operations that they don't treat the kitchen staff well, they don't treat their chefs well, they don't treat their employees well, and then they wonder why they've got bad product, bad service, unhappy customer. They've got all these problems, right? And a lot of times it's attitude. A recall can affect everybody. It'll affect the good kitchen as well. The people that are running the really good kitchen, they'll know how to deal with it though. And then the bad operations, it's chaos because they have no idea what they're doing. So yeah, we like to think that training's part of it. For sure it is. But we also know that it is only part of it, that understanding the critical role that the food service staff plays and how they can affect everything in your operation is important. How are you facing the challenges of short staff? Now, you're not in charge of staffing, but how does an organization do that? And are people that aren't professionals, can they still work in a kitchen? And I think you've already said it, because you're developing training programs to say, we've got some people that are operating at this elite level, and we've got some people that are coming in that have no skills in food service, but they're willing to work, and that's 50% of the problem solved, because they're willing. We can teach them, and I think in your kind of operations, you have HACCP, and you have a quality program, as well as standardized menus and all these things. Tell us how that helps an operation. Having a HACCP plan in place helps safely operate your operation, and standardized menus for that matter, and standardized positions, right?
Yeah,
because you have
absolutely.
Positions.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the business where I am right now, the teamwork is so important, because very often we operate in remote locations that, you cannot get, temp agency sending you, 5 guys. I need, I have extra 300 people here to feed. So I can, in Calgary, I can do that, with a, temp agency helping me out. But if I'm in the middle of nowhere, good luck with that. So you need to be creative, and cooperation between, in the smaller towns, in the smaller cities, or even in remote locations. I think the manager of the business and the chef, they need to be creative, and cross-training is so important, with people that are available, that are, just the bodies that we can coach, teach, and train in, doing, different tasks. And, is that the best option? Probably not. But at least we can do, certain tasks, certain work that, can be completed with a quick training, with a safe check, advanced food safe program, or with my own program that I have, and covering certain positions with a labor short. And as you know, and you know that very well, Dominic, that kitchen is hectic environment. Menu can be simple, menu can be complicated, but if you have a steak night, or if you have a big sale on Mondays on a chicken wings in a restaurant or in a hotel, good luck if your chef or first cook didn't show up. So good luck with people come on Mondays or Wednesdays for chicken wings and beer, and if somebody calls in sick because of the COVID, good luck. But as a manager of the restaurant or manager of the industrial camp, you just need to be creative, and of course serve safe food. So getting people to understand temperature logs, cleaning and sanitation, disinfection of the workplace, and at the same time, which my role is, making them safe while they're doing their job, using proper PPE, using proper cleaning processes, dishwashing. I very often go with my buddies on Mondays, chicken wings and beer. And I know one of the managers of the store, and said, "Oh, my second guy didn't show up." I said, "Good luck. You have like 200 people here in the restaurant, and you probably need like 5,000 chicken wings to serve tonight. So good luck with that." So, I mean, the answer to your question,
everybody talks about cross training. Ermin, we had Chef Leanna on last week. Jay, she talked exactly what you said about cross training everybody in every position and continuously doing it. It's not a once and done thing. I know in some work camps that the room attendants would be cross-trained in the kitchen to do dishes or to maybe do some salad prep or some tasks where they're not necessarily critical to cooking or temperature, or something where they can jump in a pinch. And the cross-training thing, when I was at Costco, that was my thing too. Everybody in the kitchen had to be in the bakery had to be able to do every position. It's like you're a baker, you're getting paid as a baker. You need to be able to make croissants and cakes, and just as much as you can bread and cookies, right? You might not necessarily be good at it, but you're going to get good at it because we're going to train you to be good at it, so that you don't just get to run the oven. We had one guy that's all he wanted to do, and me and my young stupid days, I put one guy in the oven once, and I said, "Robert, you have to work the oven." He said, "No, I've never worked the oven." I said, "You have to work the oven." And for months and months and months, he did not want to work the oven. And this is my naivety, actually, in that I put him on the oven one day, and I just said, "Listen, today's the day you're doing it." And I'm a bread guy. I come in, and all the croissants are black or beige or brown. Like nothing was, for me, you're a European guy. I grew up in a bakery. Like for me, golden brown is golden brown. It's very important for bread and croissants and all these things. And everything was crap. Everything. And this was a classic case of not listening. And like in this case, he would have not been the good oven guy. And I just said, "Robert, what the heck happened?" He told me he's colorblind. He was colorblind. He it was all gray to him. It didn't matter. But like, so cross training, it has its place. It 100% has its place. And in big kitchens, you can do it. In smaller kitchens, it's hard. Like you just said, right? In the wing place, when there's only 3 or 4 people in the kitchen, this is going to be a really tough thing. But I would say this is where culture, treating your staff right, and investing time and money in them to train them you're going to have less turnover. People are going to stay because there's a reason to stay. And that's even more important now because people jump around for a quarter. Still, they move from job to job for 25 or 50 cents. I don't like to talk about this often, but I think it's important for restaurants and food service places to look at, from a retention perspective, what the cost of replacement is versus just the cost of turnover. Like turnover has a huge expense. Jay, you've probably studied this multiple times and talked about it multiple times. What's the challenge for turnover? Like how do we talk to facilities to say you got to reduce your turnover so that you can have a safer product, you have a longer term staff, you have higher quality?
Sit back. This one's going to be a long one. Well, there's a lot of problems we have. One, we're not encouraging people to get into the industry. We're pretty much telling them that we need them, and they're resisting because we've done nothing to make the industry sound like a place that people want to work in. Even from TV,
just because open close.
Well, yeah, we also told them through COVID, weren't that important. so we're just going to lay you all off. And then we do. So that was a pact. We don't do a good enough job sharing the excitement and the greatness about this industry with everyone outside. We tell them about the negative about the industry. We don't tell them about how you can make $400 or $500 a night being a waitress in a club, right? Working 2 hours. We don't talk about that enough. We talk about the negative enough. So I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of problems in that manner. I think we also, in Canada especially, we use it as a stepping stone. This always comes up in the conversations I have, as a stepping stone to your career. We have to look at Canada, especially in our labor shortage that we're dealing with right now, that some seniors even are good servers.
Yeah.
They're servers that could be servers again, or they're people that can take care of people. It is a place where it can be a great, a great career. But we don't do that. We say it's your stepping stone to university or secondary schools, or it's a place that you can't make a living at it. And frankly, I think that's wrong. I think it's a miss, especially in the Canadian market. Even in the US, they take it more serious than we do in Canada. So I think there's an opportunity in that space. I think also is that um, we have to we have to pay properly um, these people. Um, I think I think we have to look at we knew I think the whole industry needs to be reevaluated because one, it's
Yes, I
not
agree.
right. Like it needs to be all evaluated when you look at the menu pricing, when you look at the profits of restaurants. Like it's there should be some. Maybe I'm totally out to lunch here, but there needs to be some business adjustments to the restaurant industry that is different than running a clothing store
Yeah.
where your margins are 50% plus in a clothing store and your margins are 5% in a restaurant if you're lucky. But we're paying the same energy bills the same, or we're paying staff minimum wage the
Yeah.
same. Right? Like we have to look at those factors so many different ways that the restaurant industry shouldn't be compared to another business because it is a unique business. We're driving small margins, we're driving small wages, we're driving lack of expertise. We're driving an industry that people say you don't need an education or you don't need to go to school to be a server. We have to reevaluate that, and especially in the Canadian market, because you adjust those things, and now we're playing in a fair field. We're going to lose 9 out of 10 times in any business model out there because it's first of all, it's been like this since the 1920s, right? This model um, it was obviously more profitable through the 80s, and through the 70s and 80s, but this model of, you know, and it probably comes from the 30s, even the 20s and 30s, maybe even before that, in the Westerns where, they kind of bugged the bartender, right? And, the server and stuff like this. We started then really, especially in the Canadian market, not respecting that position as a
Mm-hmm.
career based. And in Europe, we did. Where's most of the food shows shot of? Europe, right? Where's Gordon Ramsay? Europe. Where's Jamie Oliver? Europe, right? Like, you know, and then we have Guy Fieri in North America, right? And where's he going to? Greasy Spoons. At least he's trying, right? But like there's some things when you look at this that needs to be adjusted to make our industry a place that we won't see turnover. But it's almost like it's the recipe for um, unsuccess in in,
Yeah.
in in not having turnover. It's given
I
you.
really agree with we need to talk more about the good things that we
Yeah,
do and
yeah.
the the cool thing about this industry. There's always lots of opportunity. Um, the
There is.
the hard part
There is.
is, especially in place in Canada right now, all those input costs are way higher, and restaurants can, like, at some point there's going to be a tipping point for the consumer where they're not going to come, right? They can't. They're under the
It's
same pressures, right? They're all
yeah.
under the
We're
same
just
pressures.
about
So,
there.
yeah.
We're
So
just about there.
the it, it's really really hard. I don't know. There's obviously no easy answer for it. Like everybody, some people are starting to talk about it. COVID, I think, did reconnect us a little bit back to our customers. Like Ermin, in your case, you have a captive customer. They're there. They're eating at that camp every day. But here's the cool thing, and sometimes there's more money. Maybe there used to be. Obviously, I think those are even under pressure now. But that doesn't mean you can do a bad job, right? You still have to do a good job, and you have to operate at this spectacularly high level because they are eating at the same place 3 or 5 times a day, right? They're taking their bag lunch from there. They're having their snacks from there. They're having their meal there. They're having possibly their breakfast there. They're eating everything at the same place. So there's even more pressure to have an exciting menu, to have, I think, as much as contract feeding or camp feeding or feeding in large numbers is like that, a lot of places could take some cues for efficiency from a camp, because you have to do it in a much more efficient way because you've got that many more people, and it still has to be hot and it has to be good, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yep.
It's something. Yeah. We try to, have a versatile menu and to keep people happy, what they're eating. You feed them with a burger and hot dog every day or every night. So what I'm trying and what our team is trying to do, like 5-week menu, 6-week menu, which is completely different. So if you have a 6-week menu that is, every week is different, people will see some variety in the menu. But, very often people working, 28 days or 35 days, in a row, they become sick of everything for 35 days, not just food, but, working, 10, 12 hours, every day. And they just want to go home. And, it's really hard to, keep people happy for 30 days or whatever their rotation is. However, most remote locations where we feed and house people, people need to eat well, they need to sleep well, and they need to work well for 10 or 12 hours and make good money. We know, that, Fort McMurray, workforce making good money, but we still need to feed them well. I just want to go back to what Jay mentioned, and I cannot agree more with Jay what he says, and the historical trend that we actually accepted in Canada. And I'm from Europe, but I've been in Canada for almost 30 years, and I understand the culture. We need to respect, hospitality service more. We live in society where, fast food and junk food is part of our life. However, as I mentioned, in Germany and in Europe, chefs and cooks are considered artists. Even the waiters and waitresses. We have kids here, 18, 19 years old. That work part-time or whatever to cover their university expenses. But on the other hand, in Europe, when you go in a fine dine restaurant, you have almost university educated person serving you and telling you what wine goes with what food, and and telling you more about menu than probably or at the same level what chef knows. So those kind of things are cultural thing that we do have in some restaurants, very few, but we need to develop that, and we're getting there. As Jay says, we have Chef Ramsay, who brought big show on TV because he has European or British or whatever it is food service culture. We we eat here while we drive or while we, walking our dog outside. That's how our food culture is here, and I'm part of that. I'm Canadian, but I think we need to, in order not just from food safety perspective to bring that to a higher level, but from food culture level, we need to bring that up in Canada and in the United States as well. It's no different. So I think that includes as well. That includes a business that I'm in industrial camps, in hotel businesses, even in restaurant businesses that I'm in right now, that I'm assisting and consulting with. And I think that's the part that we have to improve in the future.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think during COVID, we did see, after the initial couple months, that a lot of communities were trying to connect back to their local restaurant to support them, because you had this big spike in the delivery services, and they definitely took advantage, and those delivery services, a lot of them took advantage of restaurants too, right? In that time of need. The restaurants that survived are definitely stronger because of it, but they're facing all kinds of other pressures now. I'm with you. The quality, safety, especially good service and connection back to the community, Jay, and what you're doing, is important, because people want to go out and enjoy a good meal. That, like, our society allows for that. We have that ability. Mm-hmm. And for young people that are coming into the industry, there's lots of as much as there's bad places with bad reputations, there's lots of good places to work with good reputations and good culture, that can offer a great career with pretty good money in today's sort of economy. And the hours and the I guess maybe the pace doesn't fit for everybody, but it is definitely a really, really good place to learn and learn a lot, not just about cooking or being a server but to learn a lot about people, because it is really, it's a people business, right? It's a culture business where you have to work with people all the time. And the more you can instill that and work with people to foster a good culture that's inclusive and offers learning opportunities for people that want to learn, again, the food service industry is a great place. I like what you guys do, Ermin, because I like places that have a good, solid program behind. Not everybody's going to have that, but having a food safety program in place is important. Having standardized menus is important. You have HACCP in place. That would have helped, obviously, fueling mines here in Calgary, right? The whole idea behind looking at safety, food safety, safety in what you're doing, has to be part of every business, and your customers will benefit from that when that's in place. And again, if you care, you can instill that with your staff.
100%. I want to share one comment, actually, from my colleague in a company where I work right now. After the daycare disaster and kids ending up in hospitals and 350, I think, cases. So the colleague of mine, who actually, she works in a finance business, but she has two small kids that attended the other daycare in Calgary, and she came to me and she says, "Ermin, I'm so glad that I work for the company that has such a robust food safety program, that we treat our clients and our residents, our guests, with a respect in regards food safety, that I'm really proud to work for this company." considering what happened in the daycares in Calgary, and I'm scared for my kids, what they eat and how they spend their day. But I know that company that I work for is looking after their guests and residents, and we never gonna have this what happened in Calgary daycares. So I was very, very actually touched and proud of that comment from my colleague.
Be, because and that again, our previous guest, Chef Liana, she's in a place that has that exact same culture, that we're not going to compromise on this, period. That's their philosophy, right? Tell us what you need. We're going to work really hard to try and make it happen. That ability to do that is available to everybody. In Fueling Minds, the one comment that sticks out to me still is that one of the directors said, "Hey, remember, the guy, we have a Red Seal chef that worked for us." And the people in my business, in your business, me and you, and even Chef Andy, I think related sort of the same messages. Who cares? So what? Great, good for you. What? How did that make it safer? It didn't. It did not make it safer. And in actuality, my thought is your arrogance made it unsafe. Your thought that because you're a Red Seal chef, you could not make a mistake, led to, I think, be proud of what you do 100%, but also be humble to know that things can go wrong and will go wrong, and having a system in place. Training, again, is part of it, but it's not the only part. Attitude is part of it. Having a plan, a system in place like what you do. Looking at your whole system from a safety perspective, not just food safety, right, but safety will go a long way to mitigating those risks, to making sure that we can put things in place to reduce or eliminate those risks. And that's what HACCP does, right? It looks at everything and says, how are we going to reduce or eliminate these? So I'm happy for you. Congratulations on what you do for the company you do it for. I appreciate our friendship and knowing each other for a long time, and only talking once or twice a year on LinkedIn or on a phone call, or for some reason it's pretty cool. I would have never said how long we've known each other myself. I would have just said for a lot of years.
I spit it out. I think I threw the number, but I shouldn't have. But it's too late now.
It is too late. Ermin, what is one more question before we go?
One more, hey?
One more. Jay, you talk a lot about this. Is automation and AI, or just even let's talk about technology. What's the benefit? Is there, and I should have talked about this earlier because it's important. Does technology have a place in the kitchen, especially in a large kitchen? But is automation or artificial intelligence, how is that going to affect our kitchens, do you think, from a food safety perspective?
You know what? Technology definitely getting into the kitchen and hospitality service, and different softwares, different applications that we use. However, I think we are still far away from AI in the kitchen environment, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not really familiar with any application that is possible now. Maybe you into that more, but I think with again, I'm going back to the chef as the main driver of the quality of the service and safety of the service, and that's individual that needs to feel, touch, and smell everything what's prepared there. And the senses of the high quality chef are more important than AI.
Yeah.
And
I
old
agree. I don't
school.
think that's going to get replaced.
Yeah, I'm old school. I think at least what I'm left, with my work time for next, I don't know how many years. I think AI will remain in a bucket somewhere else. The chefs and the good cooks will be the drivers of the quality of the service. I don't know, and that's me.
I kind of agree.
Yeah.
How about on the tech side? Do you have seen, I'm sure, on the equipment side, our technology, combi ovens and auto logging of temperatures and all these things. I'm not sure if you incorporate some of that in your facilities, but probably I would think that as you build new facilities, that the equipment is changing, and does that bring efficiency?
Oh, absolutely. I think we already have quite a few actually pieces of equipment in our kitchens that you just press the button and computer does everything else for you.
Right.
But I still, going back to the chef as the main driver of that vehicle, is that the senses of the chef and the quality of the service and going back to simple thermometer checking of temperature logs, and poke that thermometer into the turkey during the Thanksgiving, and computer will do the job for you, but until you poke that thermometer inside the turkey, you're gonna know what you have.
We talk about that specifically in our training in regards to combi ovens, because the combi oven and the probe from the combi oven also needs to be calibrated, and if that is out of calibration, then everything you make is out of is going to be at the wrong temperature. Exactly. I agree. I think the efficiencies, especially in big kitchens, is going to come when if you have enough of that equipment. Now the chef, the executive chef, he can monitor 3 or 4 people that are monitoring those pieces of equipment, because it's done by program. And you know what, fast food does that to a certain extent as well with their clamshell grills and all these sorts of things. So cool. I wanted to get your perspective on that. I think we'll probably see robotics before AI myself in some tasks in kitchens, where especially repetitive tasks, right? And or equipment itself that's going to do some of these other things. I think the cost of automated equipment that will do stuff for us in kitchens will just get continually pushed down because of the labor shortage. Ultimately, that's still kind of the driver. Not even the money part of it. It's the fact that we have, like Jay said, we have to do a better job of attracting people into. And the one thing I wanted to say is we're in North America. We're probably in Canada and the US anyway. We are addicted to cheap food, right? So, and a lot of times the difference between cheap food and pretty good food is small as far as the expense goes. Like my fast food, food from a fast food place, and my casual dining prices that gap is getting smaller. So it's interesting to see. Ermin, again, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you joining us. Thanks for sharing what you do. Thanks for the good work you do. We got to get you on more often, because I think the hospitality industry can definitely learn a lot from a safety perspective from what camps do, because you have to have more things in place, because you're feeding that much more people. When something goes wrong, it can go wrong in a big way. So what you do is really important. And thank you, and thanks for our friendship.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me, Jay and Dominic, and I hope my boss will hear some of those nice words that you actually shared with us today. But no, joking on the side, I really appreciate you inviting me to this podcast, and anytime, I love to share experiences and long time friendship with you.
Yeah. Well, that's the you know what, that's the cool thing is most challenges have already been faced at some point, either in our lifetime or somebody before us, right? So
Yeah.
we the young people of today need to listen to old guys like Jay and you, and have a young guy like me guide them through it.
Good one. I like that.
Anyway, again, Ermin, thank you very much. Jay, thanks again.
Thank you.
there's lots to talk about, Ermin. I think we never talked enough about the daycare thing, but maybe we'll do another one in the next couple
Yeah, we'll
of
have
weeks.
to do another. We'll have to have Ermin back.
And talk about because there's lots of comments around that. I think the province is going to make some changes specifically around. I'd like to see them make it across the board and not just like a daycare or seniors care or stuff like that. But
Yeah.
Agree.
there's some sort of panel investigating this, so we'll see what happens. Thanks again, Ermin. Jay,
For sure.
Ermin,
Thank you.
all right.
Thanks.
Thank
safecheck1.com.
There you go. Do you want to do that again?
Safecheck1.com.
There you go. You have to do it twice, Dominic. You have to get used to it.
Safecheck1.com.
We'll make you a YouTuber sooner than later.
www.safecheck1.com.
There you go.